Alright, so I'm back with another Road to 2200 Rapid video. In this game, I was 2150 with the white pieces playing against a 2255. I think this is the strongest rated player that I've had to play against so far. And this is another 10-minute game, so let's just jump right in. Pawn to d4 was played, knight f6, c4, e6, knight c3, and pawn to c5. So this is kind of funny because I'm pretty sure in the last game I played this with the black pieces. And my opponent played pawn to e3, which is kind of a conservative way of playing against it. But in this game, I go pawn to d5, e takes d5, c takes d5, and pawn to d6. This is all standard Benoni stuff. And after pawn to d6, I play knight to f3, and black looks to fianchetto this dark square bishop on the long diagonal, which is a typical plan in the Benoni. I go bishop to f4 and adopt like a London like setup with pawn to e3 and h3. H3 is looking to preserve this bishop in the case of knight to h5, and I want this bishop to target this weak pawn on d6. So I want to keep this bishop on the board. If I lose that bishop, this bishop is going to be quite powerful. So I think it's best to preserve this bishop. Pawn to a6, looking to expand on the queen side. I go pawn to a4 to stop that, and black goes rook to e8. I go bishop to e2, and I think in hindsight it probably would have been better to play something like knight to d2 to stop his knight from jumping to e4, but after bishop e2 we have knight to e4. And I go queen to c2, and this is kind of an inferior move because of bishop to f5, and my plan in the game was to play bishop to d3, and what I missed was that this runs into a tactic with bishop takes c3, b takes c3, and pawn to c4. And the idea is I can't really take here because then knight to g3 hits my rook and it also hits my queen, so I'm going to be losing some material here. But in this position, I think I would have to play bishop takes e4, and after bishop takes e4, either go queen b2 or queen d2, but regardless, bishop to d3 is going to be really annoying because it would stop me from castling. So in the game, we didn't have bishop f5, but that would have been a better option. He plays knight takes c3, b takes c3, and bishop to f5. And in this position, I go bishop to d3. He goes bishop takes d3, queen takes d3, and queen to c7. I go knight to d2, looking to stop him from playing pawn to c4. He goes knight d7, looking to play knight e5, put his knight on a good square, and I castle. He goes knight to e5 anyway. And this is a big missed opportunity for me. I should probably play bishop takes e5, and then after bishop takes e5, then continue with knight to c4. And I think this would be pretty good for me because I'm either going to take back this bishop and I won't be worse, or I'm going to play something like a5 and b6 and knight b6, or just put a grip on the position with a5. So if he does nothing, let's say he drops his bishop back, then I think something like a5 is a good option. Also, just bringing a rook over to target this, since the queen side is kind of locked down right now. Something like rook a b1 would probably be a good idea. And then it's probably in his best interest to sack a pawn here. And after rook takes b5, try and gain some counterplay elsewhere, but I think that would have been the best way for me to play. Just put this knight on c4, where I think it's a better minor piece than this bishop, which doesn't really have much of a scope. I mean, it has a lot of a scope, but it's not really doing anything attacking this pawn on c3 because there's no other way for him to target it since this knight stops the queen from coming to a5. So this knight is a really powerful piece here, and that should have been what I did in the game, but instead of taking his knight, I drop my queen back to c2, which is no good, and this just allows him to go b5, which is a move he wanted to play anyway. And then after we trade rooks, and then I go rook b1, trying to stop him from going b4 right away because there's a pin down the c-file. After rook b1, he goes queen to a5. I should probably play queen to b2 or queen to b3. Queen b3 is probably preferable, but he's probably going to look to continue to try and play b4. He might even look to trade queens or something, but I feel like I'm kind of not really in the driver's seat anymore at this point in the game. But instead of queen b3, I played pawn to c4, which is not a great move because it allows him to create a pass pawn. I go knight to b3. He goes queen a6, and now I take his knight, but it's probably too late to take his knight now. I go pawn to f4, bishop to c3, and I try and create some counterplay here, but unfortunately I just hung a pawn on c4, and then after I hang that pawn, everything else kind of falls. I move my king over, trying to stop him from going bishop to d4 check and winning my queen. He goes rook to a3. I move my knight. He goes queen to e2, pinning me from the side. I go rook to d1 to defend my knight, but he just takes and then gives a check, gives another check, takes on f4, and now I'm just down 2 pawns, and he's got 2 connected outside pass pawns, so this is probably not going to end well. A couple more moves, and then I resigned after rook to e1 check, because after I play rook to f1, that's just mate. But I thought this was a pretty decent game. He just outplayed me. I'd say there was a couple chances. My biggest chance was probably here when he played knight e5. I should probably recognize that I should probably take this knight at this moment, and this could give me good positional chances. But outside of that, I think he just played very well and probably took advantage of some of my weaker moves in the opening. But overall, not too unhappy about this game. Weren't any horrific blunders really until the end, but I was already losing at that point. But look, I'm looking to bounce back from this game, and I will see you guys in the next one.